Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Zaina. I'm a certified holistic financial coach and a core educator at Women Invest, and this is Shahd.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm Shahd and I am one of the co-founders of Women Who Invest and also someone who's been practicing halal investing for the last 8 to 9 years.
At Women Who Invest, we are a platform dedicated for women of all socioeconomic backgrounds. And essentially, what we aim to do is that we aim to support women in building wealth and sustaining it as well. And today, what we are going to discuss is our own personal architecture framework called Head, Heart, Halal. So we are going to be talking about every section, how it can be implemented in practical terms, and how we also practice it in our courses, in our programs, and really on all of the resources that we put out there. So we highly encourage you to follow us on social media, keep up with our newsletter, just put your email in. We have great resources. We're always offering complimentary webinars, workshops, both on ground and off ground as well. And of course, we have our signature course coming up later in the summer and a masterclass that we are going to be hosting in a few weeks regarding everything investment and how to get started. So let's start with the first layer of our framework, which is the head, and this is Shahid's specialty here.
Alrighty, so when we look at the Triple H framework, like Zaina said, the first part is the head. So think of it as the top of the triangle. Now the head really is about understanding the logic needed and the strategy to make your investments work. So when we're looking at the head, we are really assessing two major components. First of all, your risk appetite. So how can you absorb the risk involved with the investment? Because as we know, when we're looking at risk, when we're looking at investments, we have to have a risk which we've taken upon ourselves. And this might be a high level of risk or might be a low level of risk. Low, if for example, the investment is something stable, steady, it's something that increases over time, and there's not a lot of volatility. High risk is something where you may get a huge reward, but you may actually luck out and get no reward, at least not in this dunya. And so understanding your risk is really important. Understanding what kind of investor you are. Are you someone who gets very scared when you see the negative signs in your portfolio? The second part of looking at the head is also assessing your type of goal. So is it long term or is it short term? Is it something where you need to achieve it in an amount of time, or it's something which is more open? Depending on the type of goal and how you want to get to it, that will also change the structure of how you're going to approach your investment. So, for example, if Shahad wants to go for Umrah with her parents in the next 2 years, the investment vehicles I'm going to use to put my money to then grow that and be able to use it for the Umrah is going to be very different to if I had the intention of starting a business in 10 years and I want to use that capital to quit my job, my 9-to-5 job, and then start the business. So you see here, even though the intentions here were something that was of a long-term nature or longer-term nature, both of them may have very different paths. One which is 3 years versus one which is 10 years. And so that's the first part of our framework, which is assessing the strategy and the framework involved you needed to achieve your goals.
Now let's talk about the second layer, which essentially is the middle part of the pyramid that Shahd mentioned. This is the heart. This is how we focus on what is it in our subconscious that is dictating our financial decision making. So a quick concept that I want to talk to you about, this is something that I mentioned in previous videos, and it's an important point that I always bring up because it truly just summarizes and explains this part of the framework perfectly, which is that we have something called the limbic system, or the right side of the brain. Essentially, this is the side that understands intuition, emotion, and everything related to that. And that part is able to process reality 200 times faster than our logical side of the brain, which understands math, language, numbers, all of these things. So if our limbic system or our emotions are able to perceive reality and make meaning of it 200 times faster than the logical side, that means the gap of where you are currently and where you want to be is purely an emotional one. And it is based on what you deem as safe and what you deem as your comfort level, which cannot expand unless you face your fears or face what you perceive as a threat and prove to your subconscious mind and your decision-making framework that's happening internally that executing a step is safe. And this is what we really work with at Women Who Invest, and what we focus with our teachings is that the work is both internal and external. So you start with the internal base of building safety, emotional regulation, and really just focusing on how to notice our patterns and how they are manifesting in our financial decision making skills. And then with our second part, or with the external part, we look at things like how to read economic headlines, how to execute, how to identify which investment avenues work best for us. And so this is basically, to summarize, the heart section of our framework. And lastly, we have the halal, which is something that we prioritize in our teaching. We aim to educate a lot of women on it. And this is where Shahd is certified as well to provide insights and advice.
So thank you, Zaina, for that. I think in terms of, we're going back to triangle, if you see the way it's structured, you see the first part, which is the head, and we look at what Zaina just covered, the heart. The last section is the most important section, which is the halal. This is the bottom of the pyramid. Really, without the bottom, you will not have the first two, because this is your foundation. The halal really looks at how do I make sure that the investments I'm going to take are in my values, in line with Sharia. Because in Islam, when we're looking at investments, we have to make sure the investments, they don't not only touch the prohibited, but they actually encourage value. So we're looking at things or opportunities of interest that allows us to create new values within our systems, to be able to encourage people to innovate, to be able to allow us to achieve our goals for the dunya and the akhirah. And so the Sharia principles behind this, which are underpinning the halal part, really we have to understand here, first of all, what is halal, what is allowed in our case, and what is haram, what are we not allowed to touch. So when we look at halal, we're really looking at three major components. The halal is no riba, meaning not touching anything that touches interest. And interest can manifest itself in many different parts of society. It is not just simply the percentage that you see because of a bank loan. It could be a business transaction. It could be inbuilt into a contract. It could even be something named something other than interest. And so you have no idea, but you're actually helping to encourage the use of this. And so making sure that we're avoiding interest at all costs is extremely important. The second part is avoiding something called gharar. Gharar, which is ambiguity or uncertainty. This is when we are seeing transactions or contracts or businesses where you don't necessarily know what the outcome is going to be. So for example, you put your money in and you're not sure when you're going to receive the outcome of this, what does the outcome look like, how is it going to benefit you. So the minute there is uncertainty and it's a high degree, you really want to stop and say this is a red flag. The third and final pillar of this is looking at the haram industries. So you have to make sure that when you're looking at an investment, that it's not touching anything that is prohibited by Islam. So we understand we can't use or encourage or inhibit interest. We understand that we have to have a degree of certainty in the way that our contracts are executed, in the way that we know what we're going to receive from the investment. But also those two can be in place. But if the industry is haram, we can't invest in that either. And so looking at industries, for example, like weapons, like alcohol, like gambling, adult entertainment, these are all haram industries which even we cannot use, therefore we cannot invest in and we cannot profit from. And so you see here, the idea of creating value is extremely important in Islam. It is making what is tayyib, what is allowed, what is beautified to be encouraged, and then what is haram to obviously, hopefully be removed itself, with us in encouraging what is right and what we are prohibiting what is wrong.
So this sums up what our framework is, and really the core of our teachings at Women Who Invest. Again, this is something that we are going to be discussing, and how to implement it in your investment journey in an upcoming masterclass that we are hosting in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you sign up for our newsletter to know more. Follow us on our socials. And we also have our signature course program, which is coming on later in the summer. It's an 8 weeks program. And Shahd, would you like to talk about this one?
For sure. So this is really for those who want to deep dive into
Yes.
understanding how to get started with investing and actually get the steps needed. Because it's one thing to start learning, but it's another thing to start implementing. So we do both the theory and the practical. So we'll start off with understanding what inner work you need to get started on your journey, and then actually start giving you the halal tips and tricks to understand what it's investing. And then by the end of it, you would have not only made your first investment, inshallah, but understand the strategy that you're going to follow through with to make sure that you're continuing to build your wealth throughout the course of the next following months, inshallah.
So thank you very much, everyone, for watching this video. If you have any questions or clarifications that you need, make sure you drop them in the comments below. Do share this with the women in your life that you feel like would benefit from this framework or the information that we give out. And of course, stay safe. Thank you again and have a nice day.
Take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.